Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Kurama protects baby Naruto. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Kurama was a lot of things. Powerful, intelligent, a giant nine-tailed fox, but in no way was he a fuzzball. Or a giant bunny rabbit, as this tiny kid, maybe 4 years old, called him. What did you call me? Kurama rumbled, amusement written across his furry face. A giant bunny rabbit, the small child announced, looking proud of himself. That's what the mean lady at the orphanage called animals like you. Bunny rabbits. Kurama snorted, sending a blast of warm air at the boy. I am no bunny rabbit child. Bunny rabbits are white or brown. I am ginger-colored, thank you very much. The little boy looked amazed. You must be really smart. Much smarter than you, Kurama agreed. See all my tails? They mean I am very smart and powerful. Ooh, the little boy said. That's a lot of tails. So, what's your name? Mine's Naruto. Kurama exhaled softly. No one has asked my name in a very long time, kid. My name is Kurama. Why are you in this sewer? This is your mindscape. I must say, this cage is much more comfortable than being chained to a moon. But the moon is so far away? How'd you get here? It was not the actual moon, it was your mother's mindscape. I had a mother? The kid asked, eyes wide. Of course you did. If you did not have a mother, you would not exist. Do you have a mother? Kurama shook his head, amused. No, I did not have a mother. I had a father. Although, I suppose the Jubi could be considered my mother. Can you have one or the other? Did I have a father? Yes, kid, you had a father and a mother. Whoa, where'd they go? Do they not love me? They were forced to leave you, Kurama decided after a moment of thinking. He didn't really want to have to explain death to a 4-year-old. They died protecting you. He'd tell the kid about the incident later. In a few years perhaps. Oh, Naruto sat down. But they did love me? Yes, very much. Okay, I forgive them for not being here. Kurama smiled slightly at the kid. So small, and yet so kind. This could have been bad, but it seemed that the kid may actually be a good Jinchuriki. So, Kurama-san, what's a mindscope? Mindscape, Kurama corrected. It is a mental representation of your mind. Naruto looked so confused, so Kurama took some pity on him. It is a place in your head. It is all made up by your mind. So, why are you trapped here? Naruto asked, brows furrowing. Lift up your shirt, Kurama commanded. Naruto did so, then looked back at him. Kurama was worried. The kid was way too thin. Way too thin for someone his age. As far as Kurama knew of humans, anyway. Channel some chakra to your stomach. What's chakra? Naruto asked, tilting his head, dropping his shirt and sitting down, clearly prepared for a lecture. Kurama sighed but settled down, placing his head on his paws. He'd have to deal with that issue later. Chakra is the energy that keeps us running. Ninjas like your parents use it to do jutsu. Oh, so, like, the switching thing that some people do when caught in a trap? Naruto asked excitedly. Yes, like that, Kurama said. That is the replacement jutsu. How do you channel it? It is like diverting a river. Let the energy pool in your stomach. Naruto nodded, pulling his shirt up to his ribs again, and concentrating. Slowly, the seal faded into view. Naruto looked down and gasped at the black lines of ink spreading across his stomach. It faded away, but the kid seemed shell-shocked. That keeps you in here? Kurama nodded. Yes it does. Your father made sure of it. Does Gigi know about you? Naruto asked, tilting his head to the side. Kurama resisted the urge to coo at the adorable sight. I would imagine he does. Why didn't he tell me? Kurama sighed, a gust of hot air nearly blowing the kid over. I do not know, kid. Why do you call me kid? It is a term of endearment. Also, a kid is a baby fox. What's a fox? Kurama internally sighed. So many questions. He supposed the kid hadn't had someone who'd answer his questions before. I am a fox, kid. Oh, that's cool, Naruto said, grinning. Hey, Kurama-san? If you're so smart, do you know why the villagers hate me? Kurama sighed once more. Yes kid, I know why they hate you. It is because of me. Naruto looked confused. But you're so nice. They do not realize that. Nor did they bother asking me. You are one of the first humans to ask my name. That's so sad. Naruto decided. Do you know who my parents were? You don't? Kurama asked, taken aback. Gigi just says that he doesn't know, but I think he's lying. Kurama sighed. Your parents were Minato Namikaze. The fourth Hokage? Naruto interrupted. Yes, and your mother was Kushina Uzumaki, who was my last Jinchuriki. Whoa, why don't I have my dad's last name? It would be dangerous for you. Until you can properly defend yourself, you cannot be known as Minato's relative. Iwa and Kumo hated Minato, and would jump at the chance to kill his son. But why didn't he tell me? Naruto looked close to tears. I do not know, Kurama admitted. Maybe avoid asking him though, we do not know how he will react. He could strengthen the seal once more, cutting me off from talking to you. And I rather like talking to you. Much better than sitting around here bored out of my mind. Hey, Kurama-san, Naruto began. Can you teach me to be strong? Kurama was taken aback. Well, he was a 4-year-old. He must just be searching for someone to help him. Sure, I will help best I can. Even giant 9-tailed foxes were not immune to the urge to parent small children. Being the oldest and most powerful, he'd always had much stronger parental instincts, especially when it came to his Jinchuriki. Naruto grinned, wide and toothy. Thanks, Kurama-sensei. Kurama blinked. Well, that was a development. You need to wake up now, he said gently. You can't stay in here forever. Naruto sighed, slumping slightly. Okay, how do I get out? I'll send you back, Kurama said, pulsing his chakra to force the small boy's conscience back to the real world. Naruto opened his eyes to see the blank ceiling of his room at the orphanage. Have you begun at the academy, Kit? Naruto jumped at the sudden voice in his head. He fell off his a bit too small bed, and landed on the floor with a hard thump. What was that? He asked, looking around. You just met me a few minutes ago. Kurama-sensei? Yes. You can respond inside your head, it will keep you from looking like a lunatic. Like this? Yes. Are you doing anything today? The matron probably has me doing chores, Naruto replied sadly. No one else does them, so I have no one to talk to. You do realize I literally cannot go anywhere, right? Oh yeah, Naruto thought. His stomach grumbled. I should probably check for what she wants me to do. I want dinner this time. Wait a moment. Come inside the seal, I'm going to show you how to make a bushin. You'll get stuff done faster. Internally, Kurama also thought it would be funny to scare the matron by having a shadow clone able to henge into a fox and contain some of his consciousness. Naruto appeared in front of the massive fox. A bushin? Kurama nodded. A cage bushin. It's solid, and you get its memories back. Does that mean there's a normal bushin? Naruto wondered. Yes, it is merely an illusion, and has no mass. Naruto opened his mouth to ask another question, and Kurama decided to cut the boy off before they got even further off topic. I use this hand sign for it, but there are a couple others you can use. Kurama told the boy, demonstrating the 2 half rams, one turns sideways to form a cross. You can also use this one. He did the tiger hand sign, hands clasped together with the pointer and thumb fingers pointing to the sky. He channeled chakra through the seal, just a tiny amount, and a tiny fox, about the size of a normal fox appeared. It grinned crookedly at Naruto, and Naruto cooed at the fox. Ah, it's so cute. I'm still Kurama, the tiny fox informed him. Just smaller, less power. Naruto nodded wisely. Okay, now, get out there and try it yourself. If you do well, maybe tomorrow we can leave the clones to do the work, and we'll go find somewhere to practice. Your mother used this one training field with her Uchiha friend. Makoto, I think her name was. Not many know about it, so it should be free. Naruto nodded. Kurama-sensei? Can you send me out again? Kurama shook his head, but pulsed his chakra to send the boy back outside. Naruto tried the cross seal, his fingers responding clumsily. He pushed chakra into it, using what Kurama-sensei had said last night. 4 identical clones stared back at him. Admittedly, you might have a bit more trouble with hiding the fact that there are 4 of you running around. Perhaps dispel 2 or 3 of them. Dispel? Naruto asked, confused. Dispel, Kurama corrected. And, it means to get rid of. Try giving 2 of them a nice punch to the head. How do you punch? Hit with a closed fist. Just hit the clone. Naruto shrugged, then hit the clone nearest to him. It exploded into smoke and he blinked as the memories returned to him. That's weird. Yes it is. Naruto hit one of the other clones, and it too burst into smoke. So, what do I do now? Go do your chores. Theoretically, they each have your mind, and should be able to go do chores with you, speeding it up. Naruto nodded. To his clones, let's do the chores. They both gave apathetic yays. The non-shadow clone Naruto left first, heading off to start cleaning the front, while one of the clones left a few minutes later, headed in the opposite direction to reorganize the library, and the third headed out a few minutes after the second to clean the back half of the orphanage. All three were done by lunchtime, at which point they gathered back in Naruto's room, and Naruto dispelled them by hitting both on the head with a book the first clone had gotten from the library. "Can you even read, Kit?" Kurama sighed heavily, the noise echoing through Naruto's head. "I'll teach you tonight." "Cool. First, I want to try something." "Alright, so you have two chakras in you, yours and mine. You can draw on and use my chakra. I want you to try making a shadow clone with my chakra. I'll control my own chakra best I can, but who knows what might happen." "Alright." Kurama gently fed a little bit of his chakra to the kid, just enough to make one shadow clone. Unfortunately, a little extra slipped out before he could stop it. Naruto took the chakra and produced two clones, the first one entirely Kurama's chakra, making it a normal-sized fox. The second was Kurama's chakra, plus Naruto's, producing a red head kid with fox ears and a tail. He was wearing a red version of Naruto's outfit, and had red eyes with the pupils slitted like a fox's. The red-headed clone stared at Naruto. "I don't even want to know how you manage this," he said, frowning. "Wait, Kurama-sensei?" The redhead tilted his head. "Sort of. Not me, but certainly not you. Interesting. I can hear you, Kurama," the redhead said calmly. "You need a name," Naruto decided. "How about, I don't know any good names. Q should work for now." Q tilted his head. "That will work." The matron walked in, spotted the fox, and started screaming. Q looked between her and the fox for a bit, while Naruto just stared at the matron. She had never screamed before. "Get out of my orphanage, demon!" she shouted after she had finished screaming. "Get away from the nice boy." Q looked her in the eyes, and she registered the red eyes. She looked faint. "Never mind, both of you demons, get out. Don't come back. Take that creature with you," she practically growled at the fox, and it leapt up to curl around Naruto's neck like a scarf. It yipped as the matron left. Naruto was about to burst into tears. He was darn it, not at all ready to fend for himself. "We should collect what things you can carry with you," Q informed him, searching around for the backpack Gigi-sama had gotten Naruto yesterday. "Where did you put that backpack? I know you have one." Naruto shrugged, looking around. "I forgot." He quickly blinked away tears, and helped Q search for the backpack. Kurama was the one who found it, as it still had the shop scent on it. He didn't know the shop, but it was the only thing in the apartment with any strong scent other than the Hokage's and Naruto's. It was a black backpack, clearly a shinobi-designed one, with lots of pockets and such. It had orange stripes, and already had a couple paint streaks. "Don't worry, Kit," the smaller fox told Naruto. His voice was a bit squeakier than the normal-sized Kurama, so it was at least a bit amusing. "We'll figure something out. After all, you have Kurama and me. Kurama may not be able to assume human form, but I share his knowledge," Q told Naruto. "We should see the Hokage. I can't believe I'm actually saying it, but we need to go see him." "All three of us," Kurama said, seizing a pair of pants in his teeth and dragging them over. "That's the last of it, come on Kit." Naruto nodded, shouldering the pack, then looking around the room once more. He wouldn't be coming back here. Ever. Q took a hold of Naruto's shoulder with one hand, and picked up the tiny Kurama with the other, tucking him under his arm. Q steered Naruto out of the orphanage, a couple of people giving the three odd looks. Mini Kurama eventually managed to get a perch on the practically comatose Naruto's head, sitting there and glaring with red slitted eyes at those who glared at Naruto. They, of course, freaked out, despite the fact that Mini Kurama only had one tail, due to having much less chakra than the actual fox, which was sitting in Naruto's seal. Naruto woke up halfway to Hokage Tower, and Kurama and Q decided they could dispel themselves now, as there really weren't many civilians around. "What am I supposed to tell Hokage Gigi?" Naruto asked, beginning to have an internal freak out. "That the orphanage threw you out. But, what if he hurts them? From what I could see, they bullied you, and honestly, I'm pretty sure that I'm the only reason you're still alive. You're barely keeping from starving to death." Naruto fell silent at that, but the two could tell his thoughts were swirling. He barely spoke as he walked into Hokage Tower, and up to the Hokage's office. "Naruto, what brings you in here?" the Hokage asked, looking slightly worriedly at the backpack. "Why didn't you tell me about Mr. Kurama?" Naruto asked, eyes brimming with tears. "Mr. Kurama?" the Hokage asked, surprised. "The giant orange bunny rabbit," Naruto explained. "Naruto, kid, I'm a fox, not a bunny rabbit." "Oh, sorry Kurama-sensei. He says he's a fox, not a bunny rabbit," Naruto informed the Hokage, oblivious to his shocked and horrified face. Kurama and Q's giggles echoed in his head, making him curious. "It would have to wait though." "Oh, that's the Kyuubi, Naruto. He killed your parents," the Hokage said gently. Naruto blinked. "Kurama-sensei? Is he right?" "Unfortunately, kid, I was being controlled and forced to go on a rampage. Your mother died because I had been forcefully extracted from her by an evil guy, and your father died sealing me into you." "But what can control you?" Naruto asked, oblivious to the fact he'd just spoken out loud on accident. "You're so big and smart and powerful. A Rouge Uchiha. Not all Uchiha are bad, just the evil ones. Which, luckily, as far as I know, has only been two. The one that controlled me, and Madara Uchiha, who also controlled me." "Who's Madara Uchiha? And what's an Uchiha?" Naruto asked. "Your mother's friend Makoto was an Uchiha. They are a big family in Konoha." Naruto nodded. He understood now. "Are Uchiha nice? Would they be my friend like how Makoto-san was my mom's friend?" Hiruzen nearly had an aneurysm at that one. How did the kid know of his parents? "Maybe they can be a bit stuck up though. But if you do find a nice one, they'll be your friend for life." "For the most part. Okay, I'll find a nice Uchiha to be my friend," Naruto announced, standing on his chair triumphantly. "Naruto," the Hokage said calmly. "The Kyuubi is evil, he's just trying to corrupt you and escape." "Naruto, of course," asked Kurama first. "If I escaped, it would kill you. I would much rather be caged in here, than lose the first person to know my name." Naruto was mildly confused. On one hand, Kurama-sensei was nice and offered to help him train. On the other hand, Hokage Jiji was telling him that Kurama-sensei was evil and wanted to kill him. He wasn't sure who to believe. Kurama-sensei had told him who his parents were, when Hokage Jiji didn't say anything. Besides, Kurama hadn't tried to kill him in the seal, or when he made a tiny Kurama fox shadow clone. Kurama-sensei it was. "Why didn't you tell me about my parents?" Naruto asked, adopting his most heartbroken expression. "Kurama-sensei had to tell me who they were." Hokage Jiji didn't look too good, almost like he might fall over at any second. "Kit, let me out as a shadow clone. I need to have some words with the Hokage. I promise not to attack him, no matter what he does." "Hokage Jiji, Kurama-sensei says he wants to talk to you and promises to not attack you no matter what." With no response, Naruto made the hand sign for shadow clones and borrowed Kurama-sensei's chakra to make a shadow clone. Of course, Q ended up coming out as well. This time though, he had violet eyes. Hiruzen nearly had a heart attack when the kid made what appeared to be two shadow clones, one of them a normal-sized fox, the other a human that looked like a male version of Kushina. "Okay, Hokage Jiji, I'm gonna go in the hall with Q. You can have a talk with Kurama-sensei." The fox hopped up on the Hokage's desk as Naruto closed the door behind him and Q, who dispelled himself as soon as they were in the hall. There was a bit of shouting that Naruto didn't bother listening to, then silence. Finally, Kurama scratched at the door, letting Naruto know he could come in now. Naruto opened the door, finding the Hokage passed out on his desk. "What did you say to him, Kurama-sensei?" "I've never gotten him to pass out before. I believe it was from shock," Kurama said finally. "He'll wake up again in a bit. Let's come back tonight, maybe he'll have recovered then." "But, where will I go?" Naruto asked, poking the Hokage in the head a few times. "Wow, he's really out. Why don't we go see that training field? We were going to do it tomorrow, but now seems like a good of a time as ever." "Do you know the way?" Naruto asked, tilting his head. Kurama jumped up on the desk, then up onto Naruto's head. "Of course I do, that's how I know about it." "Lead the way then, I guess," Naruto said, shrugging. Kurama pointed to the door, and Naruto walked out the door, following the kitsune's directions all the way to a training field on the edge of the village. Kurama dispelled himself as they entered the field, not wanting to cause the kid any more harm. If there was anyone in the clearing, they might react badly to seeing Naruto with a fox. Naruto advanced warily, looking around the clearing before going into it fully. As there was no one there, he formed a shadow clone, creating both Q and Kurama. We need to work on only summoning Kurama, Q noted, dispelling himself. Kurama bobbed his small head. Perhaps tomorrow. For now, let's see if we can get you up a tree. But I already know how to climb trees, Naruto protested. Trees are safe, except when ninja are in the mob. They can climb trees faster than me. You'll be climbing a tree without hands. Get Q out here to demonstrate, Kurama ordered. Naruto obediently formed the cross seal, a Q clone with purple eyes and 3 Naruto clones appearing with puffs of smoke. Alright, Q clone, demonstrate the tree walking exercise. 3 Naruto clones, you'll try tree climbing alongside the original until you pop, Kurama ordered, sitting down on his haunches. Q walked up to the tree, then placed his foot on the bark, and began walking up the tree. Naruto's eyes were shining. Whoa, if I can do that, I can be really fast at climbing up trees. You can also do that with buildings and upside down, Kurama told him. Helpful for escaping civilian mobs. Naruto nodded sagely. Okay, how does it work? You channel chakra to your feet. Too little and you slip, too much and you blast a nice hole in the tree. Cool. Naruto ran at the tree, getting 2 steps up, then blasting off. The other 3 clones began running up a tree as well, blasting off after only a few steps. Controlling your emotions is the first step to controlling your chakra, Kurama advised. Calm mind, calm chakra. This is a first, a male voice said, its owner stepping out into the clearing. Well, a couple of firsts. A talking fox is new, aside from being a summon. You aren't a summon, right? Kurama thought about it, sort of. The voice's owner, a teenaged Uchiha, made a face. How can you be sort of a summon? Kurama made an almost shrugging motion, modified for him being a fox. There are a few ways. A second Uchiha walked into the clearing, regarding the scene calmly. It appears this training ground is occupied. Which is my second first. How did you find your way here? It isn't a well-known training ground. Which is why we use it, the second Uchiha muttered. So we aren't disturbed. Oh come on, Itachi, we can share for a bit, besides, it's just a little kid. Which is my third first, an academy student doing the tree climbing exercise. I'm not in the academy, Naruto told the nice Uchiha. Hokage Gigi says I have to wait until next year. So, you're Makoto's oldest, Kurama noted. How's your little brother? He is well, Itachi said. How do you know us? Aside from the fact I am well known around the village. Kurama darted over, climbed up the stationary Naruto, and perched on his head. Would you believe me if I said I was the Kyuubi? The first Uchiha's face hardened, and he assumed a wary stance. Itachi also shifted into a wary stance, ready to spring into action. Why are you loose? Itachi asked. Technically, I'm not loose. Naruto is free to dispel me at any time. If I'm hit too hard, I will dispel. And you aren't controlling him? The first Uchiha asked. Of course not, Naruto replied this time. Kurama-sensei is too nice for that. Itachi raised an eyebrow at the fox, and he shrugged. The kid asked me to train him, I said yes. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto decided to introduce himself, bounding up to the 2 Uchiha. He stuck out his hand, a smile on his face. Kurama and the 2 Uchiha could tell it was fake. It was clear he was expecting to be rejected. Shisui dropped his wary stance, adopting an equally wide smile. I'm Shisui Uchiha, nice to meet you Naruto. Will you be my friend? Kurama-sensei says that Uchiha are nice and make good friends, Naruto informed them. Shisui's smile became fond. Alright, I'll be your friend. Will you? Naruto asked, turning to Itachi. Itachi took one look at Shisui's face and sighed. Alright, I'll be your friend. Naruto did a little happy dance. Maybe I should have asked the older kids first. You're much nicer than the people at the park. They don't ever want to be my friend for more than one day. You won't not be my friend tomorrow, right? Shisui grinned at the kid. Of course, we can be your friend for more than one day. Kurama nodded gratefully at the 2 Uchiha. He could tell the older one wasn't affected by the curse of hatred, which was rare. He wasn't sure about the younger, but he doubted it. Who's your friend over there? Itachi asked, gesturing to Q, who appeared to be sleeping, stuck to the tree by his back, a good 4 feet off the ground. Q opened his eyes and jumped down. My name is Q. I am what happens when Naruto makes a shadow clone with both his and Kurama's chakra. Shisui and Itachi blinked. So, you're a completely separate personality? Shisui asked. Q nodded. Yes. I am not in the cage, however, and am free to roam around Naruto's mindscape. Cage? Itachi asked. Naruto's seal has me in a cage. Much more comfortable than being chained to a moon, Kurama admitted. And yes, my name is Kurama. Did you really think my name was Kyuubi? That would be like calling you, No Tails. The two Uchiha had to admit that made sense. Why did you attack Konoha? Shisui asked. Kurama sighed. I was really hoping to avoid this until Naruto was a bit older, but I guess it's inevitable. I was controlled by a rogue Uchiha with the Mangekyo Sharingan. And yes, I can sense you have it, Shisui-san. Shisui blinked, taking a half-step backward. My sensory abilities are only enhanced by the kid's innate sensory abilities. I can sense a lot of things I can't normally. What does innate mean? Naruto asked. You have it naturally. You'll always have it and always have, Kurama replied. We'll work on it later. So, you're actually helping him? Shisui asked, not quite able to believe it. Where do you think he learned tree walking? Kurama pointed out. And, Kushina knew where this was. Therefore I knew where this was. Kushina was my previous host. Itachi tilted his head. I think I remember her, but I was a little kid. The real question is why didn't Makoto take in Naruto? I remember Kushina writing her will, just in case, and it stipulated that Naruto was to be given to Makoto. Naruto's dad had agreed. Itachi sighed. No one ever saw the will, I suppose the council went against it. They forbade any of the Uchiha to take in Naruto. Let me guess, Kurama all but growled. No one but Danzo will ever be allowed to take him in. What do you know of Danzo? Shisui asked, eyes hardening. His roots are hidden in darkness, and should be cut completely, Kurama replied. Q, take Naruto somewhere else, he doesn't need to hear this. Q scooped Naruto up before he could protest, darting off. Kurama watched them go, then turned back to the two Uchiha. Danzo has plans, none of them good. I can sense his agents, most are little more than cannon fodder, but some can rival even you two. What did you mean by, the only person who could take in Naruto would be Danzo? Itachi asked urgently. He most likely wants Naruto as a weapon. It's not hard to figure out. He may be the one who leaked Naruto's Jinchuriki status to the village. Naruto is one of the few Jinchuriki not being used as a weapon, Shisui pondered. Not that I've seen that many. They aren't usually out in public. None of my hosts have been used as weapons. Not yet. Kushina and Mito Uzumaki's status as Jinchuriki were hidden, barely anyone knew. Kushina had to give birth outside the village because there is a high likelihood of the seal breaking during childbirth, whether I'm trying to escape or not. Itachi frowned. Who was his father? If Kushina Uzumaki was his mother, he must look like his father. Itachi trailed off, looking up at the Yondamine's face on the mountain. Hey, Shisui, you'll remember better than me. Wasn't Lord Fourth blonde-haired with blue eyes? Kurama decided to let them figure it out for themselves. Yeah, that's right, Shisui agreed. He blinked, opened his mouth, then closed it again. Wow, the resemblance is uncanny. And it would make sense. Who else could be his father? Who else is famous enough for the kid to not know his parents? I think Kushina was close with him, Shisui agreed, shell-shocked. You're right, Kurama told them. Minato Namikaze was Naruto's father. The two Uchiha were dumbstruck. Itachi's face had barely changed, but Shisui's face was just comical. You can pick your jaw off the floor now, Uchiha, Kurama said dryly. Bugs will fly in. Shisui shut his mouth with a click. He blinked bashfully. Sorry, that's just, wow. Kurama sighed. I don't know how no one noticed this before, especially people who knew both Kushina and Minato. Unfortunately, Naruto picked up his mother's verbal tic. It gets worse the more excited he is. So it is genetic, Shisui said, grinning. I told you, Itachi, I told you it was genetic and you refused to believe me until Naruto started doing it. What's he say? Datbeo, Kurama replied, flicking his tail. I'll get out of your way. Perhaps I will see you around at some point. Why don't you three join us for dinner? Itachi asked. Mother will be excited to see Naruto. Kurama smiled gently. Sure, I'll tell Naruto. What time? Around 6, Itachi told him. See you then. What, I'm not invited? Shisui asked, fake hurt. Kurama rolled his eyes, leaping away into the undergrowth as Itachi's flat answer reached his ears. You're over all the time anyway. He leapt through the undergrowth, trying to avoid anything that could dispel him. He reached the nearest training ground, finding Naruto asleep on Q's lap, the teen shadow clone sleeping as well, leaned up against a tree. Kurama smiled fondly, curling up on Naruto's tiny lap and falling asleep as well. They might as well take a nap to waste away the afternoon. Not like they had much else to do. Are you sure that's the best idea? Shisui asked his longtime friend. Who knows how Fugaku-sama will respond. My father will have to respect that I brought him over. Mother will be delighted, and father will not go against her so directly, Itachi replied, his face betraying no emotion. And Q and Kurama? They're both shadow clones. Can they even eat? Have we even tried that? Shisui got distracted quickly, musing about whether shadow clones could eat. Itachi mentally facepalmed. His friend, despite being around 3 years his senior, could be so immature at times. And so very easily distracted. Shisui sighed, abandoning the thought for later. Spar? Or shuriken jutsu practice? Spar, Itachi decided, after a moment of deliberation. Shisui moved so he was a little ways away from Itachi, and facing him. He made the seal of confirmation, and Itachi did the same. A feather from some birds flying overhead floated down, and as soon as it touched the ground, both Uchiha opened their eyes, Sharingans blazing. After the two Uchiha finished their spar, they set off in search of Naruto and the two shadow clones. Itachi remembered which way Kurama ran off, so it wasn't that hard to find the three. Ah, Shisui cooed. Aren't they cute? He activated his Sharingan for a moment, just enough to permanently burn the adorable image into his mind. In a sleep Q had a sleeping Naruto on his lap, arms curled loosely around the sleeping 4-year-old. The tiny Kurama was asleep on Naruto's lap. If you say so, Itachi agreed blandly. Shisui's sweat dropped. Right, should we wake them? If they don't want to be late for dinner, it would be advised, Itachi replied. Kurama lazily lifted his head, staring them down. He yawned, showing them his very sharp teeth. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Itachi replied politely. Kurama flicked his tail underneath Naruto's nose, making him wake up with a sneeze. Q also awakened, spotting Itachi and Shisui. Good afternoon, Q greeted. Shisui grinned, leaning over to ruffle Naruto's hair. Afternoon, you awake now? Naruto yawned hugely. I guess. He rubbed one eye sleepily. Shisui internally cooed at the kid. He was adorable. Kurama nosed the kid with his nose. Come on, up you come. Naruto got to his feet, blinking the sleepiness away. Where are we going? I believe we're going with Itachi. He invited us over for dinner. Naruto lit up at that. Really? He paused then frowned slightly. Do you have to go away? Dispel? You'd have to ask Itachi, Kurama said gently. I will probably have to. Q may not. He does have the purple eyes right now. Does he not always have purple eyes? Shisui asked, offering Q a hand. Q took the hand and pulled himself up. I had red eyes the first time I was summoned. Itachi tilted his head. I wonder what causes the eye color change. Don't we have to go? Kurama interrupted, glancing up at the sun. Itachi also glanced at the sun and nodded. If we don't want to be late for dinner, yes. He headed off into the undergrowth, Shisui shooing Naruto, Q, and Kurama that direction, before following. Naruto followed the nice Uchiha through the bushes, Q right behind him, and Kurama sitting on his head. He wondered if Itachi's parents would let him play with him after they met him. Maybe they were nice Uchiha too. And Kurama-sensei had said something about Itachi having a little brother, maybe he'd be Naruto's friend too. Then he'd have 3 friends. Or none at all, if Itachi's parents weren't nice Uchiha. What about Shisui? Was Shisui related to Itachi? Would his parents tell him he couldn't be Naruto's friend? Kurama sensed Naruto beginning to get distressed, and sighed, nosing the head he was sitting on. It'll be fine, kid. Makoto knew of me when I was sealed in Kushina, and I'm pretty sure Fugaku knew too. They probably won't stop their kids from playing with you. I am old enough to make my own decisions, Itachi said, twisting slightly to glance back at them. They cannot stop me from being your friend. Naruto nodded, relieved. Well, that was one friend he'd still have. Well, you don't have to be worried about me either, kid. I don't have any parents to tell me no. Shisui said cheerfully, a sad look in his eyes. It disappeared soon after, and Shisui moved like he was going to ruffle Naruto's hair, but stopped, as Kurama was still sitting on Naruto's head. But Kurama-sensei says that if you didn't have a mother, you couldn't exist, Naruto protested. Shisui laughed. Oh, I had parents, they died. Naruto made an ooh face and smiled at Shisui. I'm sorry you don't have any parents. Shisui blinked. Why are you sorry? You don't have any either. Naruto thought about it. Yeah, but Kurama-sensei says they died protecting me, so they must have loved me lots. You're their kid, of course, they loved you lots, Shisui replied, twitching like he wanted to ruffle Naruto's hair. Kurama rolled his eyes, and used chakra to enhance his jump so he could sit on Shisui's head. If he wanted to ruffle the kid's hair, that was fine. Kurama would just have to use his head instead. And his hair was quite soft. Shisui grinned, not seeming to care that his head was Kurama's new perch. He happily ruffled Naruto's spiky blonde hair, and Naruto leaned into the positive touch. Kurama frowned slightly at Naruto's reaction to the touch. He guessed that Naruto may be slightly touch-deprived, but this was ridiculous. Now he was just wishing he'd woken up earlier, but Minato taking away half of him had put a massive strain on him, and he'd needed to sleep it off. He was mostly recovered, thank Kami. Naruto's stomach grumbled loudly, and the kid blushed. Oops, I guess I'm hungry. He rubbed the back of his head bashfully. Yes, Kurama noted sarcastically, just hungry, when you haven't had food in over 24 hours. My mother is going to kill the matron of that orphanage, Itachi noted. She will have help. Powerful help, Shisui muttered mutinously under his breath. Something tells me that once the Hokage awakens, he won't stop you, Kurama mentioned. Once he awakens? Itachi asked, turning his head to stare at Kurama. He had to look up to do it, as Shisui was taller than he was, and Kurama was on Shisui's head. He passed out after Kurama-sensei had a chat with him, Naruto told the two Uchiha. Must have been some chat, Shisui noted. I'll tell you later, Kurama promised. Is that the Uchiha house? Naruto asked, amazed. It's huge. It has to be large. It holds a lot of people, Itachi said blandly. Come, this way. A woman opened the door before Itachi even touched the handle, smiling at the group. Itachi, you said you had a friend you wanted to bring to dinner. You forgot to mention it was Naruto. And whoever that is. Makoto looked at Q. What's your name, dear? Q blinked, then bowed to her. Makoto-sama. I am called Q. She smiled. You're very polite, young man. Q glanced at Kurama, who had remained perched on Shisui's head. You could say I was raised to be polite. You weren't raised at all, Naruto said, confused. Kurama laughed. Well, I was, so we'll go with that. Makoto raised an eyebrow at Kurama. Shisui. Yes, Makoto-sama? He asked, slightly nervously. Why is the kyuubi on your head? He said, glancing up. Kurama pushed some chakra into his legs, and jumped to Q's head, sitting back down. My name is Kurama, Makoto-sama. This is merely a shadow clone with my chakra. You'll have to properly explain later, Makoto said regretfully. We have dinner ready, you were almost late. She stepped aside, allowing them entry into the house. Naruto follows the older kids into the house, treading cautiously. He didn't want to make anyone mad. They might not be his friend, or toss him out or something. No need to be this worried, kid. Just so you know, proper etiquette means you need to call that guy at the head of the table Fugaku-sama. Alright, thanks Kurama-sensei. Of course, kid. Do try and be polite while eating though? Naruto stopped dead, staring at the really long table, with only two people at it. One his age, the other one the person he assumed was Fugaku-sama. There was so much food on it. He'd never seen so much food in his life. Fugaku, dear, this is Naruto and Q. The fox is named Kurama. Makoto stared at him, challenging Fugaku to disagree, or break the fourth law. He merely nodded, gesturing to the empty seats on his left. Itachi took the seat next to Fugaku, Naruto next to him, Shisui after Naruto, and Q on the end. Makoto was on Fugaku's left, and Sasuke was next to her. They ate in silence, Sasuke glaring daggers at Shisui, Naruto, and Q the entire time. Kurama said he was jealous, but Naruto couldn't understand why. After all, he got to eat really yummy food like this all the time. And he had parents and a big brother who loved him. After dinner was done, Fugaku left, and Makoto sent Sasuke to get ready for bed, leading the others into her office. "Alright. Explain," Makoto said, sitting down at her desk and looking at Itachi and Shisui. Itachi nodded. "We arrived at our usual training field, the one you showed us, Ka-san, and saw Naruto and 2 shadow clones of himself attempting tree climbing. Q appeared to be sleeping, using chakra to stick himself by his back to one of the trees. Kurama was standing a little to the side, watching Naruto. We talked for a while, Q taking Naruto away about halfway through our conversation due to the sensitive subject matter. I requested Kurama, Naruto, and Q join us for dinner, and Kurama left. Shisui and I trained for a while, then went to find them. We found them asleep, but they all woke up quickly. Then we came here, and you know the rest," Shisui finished. He glanced at Naruto, who was yawning and rubbing his eyes. "I am not permitted to keep him here," Makoto said regretfully. "Shisui, would you be able to care for him? Just for the night. Tomorrow we can return him to the orphanage." "That will not be possible," Kurama said, glancing at Naruto, specifically at the backpack still on his back. "The orphanage matron kicked him out. We were going to see the Hokage about it, but it devolved into me scolding him for not caring for Naruto. Then he fainted, and we left for the training field." Shisui blinked. "The 3rd Hokage fainted?" Kurama nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "Yes, he passed out quite spectacularly. Either way, I was going to request for an apartment, like they do with orphan genin." "That just won't do," Makoto said, frowning deeply. "I will not have Kushina's child live like that. I turned a blind eye for years. I can't do it any longer. Screw Danzo, I'll adopt him no matter what threats he makes. An apartment would be fine. Q is more than capable of taking care of Naruto without help. He has most of my knowledge. And he has opposable thumbs." Kurama shook his head, ruffling the fur. "And it wouldn't endanger any of you. He hasn't forbidden me from doing anything," Shisui spoke up suddenly. "My apartment has room for 2, I can take him in, but older brother instead of parent." Kurama flicked his tail. "We can't ask you to do that. The academy starts soon anyway. I've always wanted a little brother," Shisui insisted. "And it won't be much trouble. You and Q can help anyway. If you're so determined," Kurama sighed. He glanced at Naruto, noting he'd fallen asleep. "I guess we'll ask him in the morning." Makoto frowned. "One other thing, now that the child is asleep. Why did you attack Konoha?" Kurama's ears drooped. "I had no choice. An Uchiha controlled me. It's all a blur, right up until I came to with one of my claws strayed through Kushina and Minato." "An Uchiha? One of ours?" Itachi asked. Kurama shook his head. "No, none of you. He had a black cloak, and a mask that covered his entire face, except for his left eye. So, should you be set free, you wouldn't attack humans? Unless they attack one of my kits, no. Should someone attempt to attack my kit, they will be dead in under 4 seconds." Kurama said it with a perfectly neutral face. "And, as I am several thousand years older than all of you would be counted as kits." "I dunno whether to feel insulted or honored," Shisui muttered. "Honored," Q reassured him. "Few are regarded as kits to Biju. Generally limited to the host, as few are kind to Jinchuriki. And here I thought I'd grown out of being called a kid," Shisui whined, a dark cloud hanging over his head. Itachi patted him, and he straightened up. Makoto shook her head fondly. "I'll let you guys go. I have my questions answered for now. Besides, you should get Naruto to bed." Shisui nodded, leading Kurama and Q out the door, Q holding the sleeping Naruto. Itachi followed them, silent until they reached Shisui's house. While Q got Naruto settled in for the night, Shisui and Itachi drew Kurama aside. "Kurama, we have a problem," Itachi began. Kurama sat down, tilting his head. "What?" "The Uchiha clan is planning a coup," Shisui said, face darkening. Kurama sat back on his haunches. "And the Hokage knows, right?" Itachi nodded. "We are reporting it to him." Kurama nodded. "Have negotiations begun?" Shisui shook his head. "As far as we know, no." Kurama sighed deeply. This was a problem, and not just for the Uchiha. "Are there any plans in place to counter it right now?" "I have a plan to use my Koto Amatsukami to change Fugaku's mind about it. But Danzo is trying to shoot me down," Shisui said, frowning at the thought of the Konoha elder. "Keep an eye out," Kurama warned. Kushina was not fond of him and was quite wary. He's power-hungry, and I fear he may attempt to steal one or both of your eyes. Shisui nodded. I'll try and be accompanied by someone at all times. Kurama nodded. That's all we can do for now. Until negotiations are opened, we can't do anything short of massacring all adults who are aware of the coup. Itachi bowed his head. I am afraid it may come to that. Be prepared is the only thing I can tell you, Kurama told them. He had been working on paperwork, as was the bane of all Kage. Well, any leader, really. He looked up as Naruto walked in, a preoccupied look on his face, and the backpack Hiruzen had gotten him the other day on his back. Naruto, what brings you in here? Hiruzen asked, slightly worried as Naruto's eyes started tearing up as he sat down in the chair in front of Hiruzen's desk. Why didn't you tell me about Mr. Kurama? The 4-year-old asked. Mr. Kurama? Hiruzen asked, surprised, and beginning to worry even more. The giant orange bunny rabbit, Naruto explained. Hiruzen blinked, confused. Then he pieced it together, just as Naruto corrected himself. Oh, sorry Kurama-sensei. He says he's a fox, not a bunny rabbit. Hiruzen had to stop himself from immediately calling for Tenzo, but was sure his shock was plastered all over his face. Oh, that's the Kyuubi, Naruto. He killed your parents, Hiruzen told the boy gently. He had to fix this, he had to make sure the fox didn't corrupt the child. Naruto blinked, then appeared to have a conversation with someone Hiruzen couldn't hear. But what can control you? You're so big and smart and powerful. He paused, listening, then continued. Who's Madara Uchiha? And what's an Uchiha? Hiruzen felt a bit faint. This was not going according to any plan he'd ever thought of. Naruto nodded. Are Uchiha nice? Hiruzen nearly choked on air at that one. Would they be my friend like how Makoto-san was my mom's friend? Hiruzen nearly had an aneurysm at that one. How did the kid know of his parents? And who in Kami was he having a conversation with? Okay, I'll find a nice Uchiha to be my friend. Naruto announced, standing on his chair, a wide grin splitting his face. Naruto, Hiruzen said calmly, the Kyuubi is evil, he's just trying to corrupt you and escape. Naruto blinked, and sat back down with a thump. He remained staring off into nothing for a few seconds. He refocused on Hiruzen, and had the most heartbroken expression that Hiruzen had ever seen on a child. Why didn't you tell me about my parents? Kurama-sensei had to tell me who they were. Hiruzen almost fainted at that one. The Kyuubi, the terrifying 9-tailed fox, had apparently taken pity on a 4-year-old child and told him who his parents were. Hokage Jiji, Naruto said abruptly. Kurama-sensei says he wants to talk to you and promises not to attack you no matter what. Hiruzen didn't respond. He was a bit busy trying to work out why the Kyuubi, Destroyer Supreme, would do this to a child. Hiruzen nearly had a heart attack when the kid somehow made 2 shadow clones. One a strange teenager that looked almost exactly like Kushina, except for the fact that he was clearly a male. The other clone was a normal-sized fox, a bushy, white-tipped tail waiting behind it. Okay, Hokage Jiji, I'm gonna go in the hall with Q. You can have a talk with Kurama-sensei. The fox hopped up on his desk as the door closed behind the teenager, apparently named Q, and Naruto. The fox sat down on top of one of his stacks of paperwork and stared at him. In case you were wondering, yes, I am the Kyuubi, and my name is Kurama. Hiruzen nodded mutely. Do you have any idea how Naruto is treated? Kurama asked conversationally, tilting his head. Hiruzen nodded again. I can do nothing to stop it, I cannot order people to like him. Kurama snorted. No, I'm referring to the orphanage. The matron was basically starving him, forcing him to work without breakfast or lunch, and he rarely got dinner. The matron has since kicked Naruto out of the orphanage. Hiruzen actually fainted, and Anbu jumping down to catch him as he almost fell out of his seat, and lay him across his desk. The Anbu disappeared into the rafters again. Kurama snorted, then hopped off the desk. Shisui started laughing. Wow, that's a new one. Itachi's face remained impassive, but his twitching lips gave him away. Kurama nodded, glancing at the still sleeping Naruto. He was certainly surprised. I hope he doesn't faint again when we go in today. Me too, that would be awkward, Shisui muttered. Did Q dispel? Kurama nodded. He dispelled himself to let the kit's chakra recover. I am being sustained by my own chakra with no cost to the kit. Itachi stood up, glancing into the other room. Naruto is waking up. Ka-san insisted you come over for breakfast, whenever Naruto wakes up. Explains why you were at my apartment at 5 in the morning, Shisui muttered, yawning. I'm not Guy, that's too early to be awake. I agree with him, Kurama agreed, jumping up onto Shisui's head. Am I going to be your ride this whole time? Shisui asked, standing up. Probably, Kurama admitted. Your hair is softer than Naruto's. Thanks? Oh, good morning Naruto, Itachi said, nodding to the sleepy child. Morning, Naruto said, yawning widely. Where are we? We're at Shisui's house, Kurama supplied. Why don't you find your shoes? They should be next to your backpack. We're going back over to Itachi's place for breakfast. Naruto yawned, causing the yawning to spread to both Itachi and Shisui. Kurama was unaffected. For the moment, Naruto wandered back into the room he'd been sleeping in, coming back out with his shoes on. Do I need my backpack? If we need it, we'll come back and get it, Shisui assured him. This is just breakfast anyway. Oh, Naruto said in a small voice. Okay. He looked up and grinned widely. Let's go eat breakfast. Shisui smiled at him and ruffled his hair. Alright kid, not you too. Naruto complained as Itachi led them out the door and back to his house. It's a cute nickname, Kurama argued. Naruto pouted and moved to walk next to Itachi instead. Shisui pouted at the 4-year-old's back. You're just in time, Makoto said, smiling as they walked up. Itachi nodded respectfully to his mother. Naruto was attempting to imitate him, but failing adorably and spectacularly. Shisui and Kurama had more success nodding respectfully to Makoto as they passed. What are you planning to do today? Makoto asked them as they sat down. Fugaku was nowhere to be seen. Go see the Hokage, then, I dunno, get Naruto new clothes maybe, Shisui shrugged. Can they be orange? Naruto asked immediately. Shisui grinned. I'm sure we could manage at least a little bit of orange. Naruto beamed at him, running up to hug him around the knees, which was about as high as Naruto could reach. Shisui patted him on the head, then detached himself and sat down at the table. Good morning Sasuke. Sasuke stuck his nose in the air and poked at the pancakes in front of him. Shisui's sweat dropped. Sasuke, he said plaintively. Not even a hello? Sasuke still didn't reply, and Shisui slumped, poking at his pancakes half-heartedly. If you don't eat those quickly, Kurama advised, or Naruto's going to eat them for you. He's already eyeing them. Needless to say, the pancakes disappeared pretty quickly after that. Have a good day boys, Makoto called as Shisui and Itachi led Naruto to the Hokage Tower. You too, Ka-san, Itachi replied. Bye-bye, Naruto said cheerfully, waving. Hey, Naruto, Shisui said, noting the glares at Naruto and confused glances he and Itachi were getting. Would you like to see a fancy jutsu in action? It's called Shunshin and I'm famous for it. Naruto cocked his head, then nodded. Yeah, how are you gonna show it? By using it to get us to the tower faster, Shisui replied, crouching down. Climb on my back, and hold on tightly. Naruto conceded, climbing onto Shisui's back and wrapping his arms and legs around him like an octopus. Shisui shunshined into the main lobby of Hokage Tower. As for the most part, Anbu were not fond of shinobi randomly shining into the tower. The secretary waved them through, recognizing that all three were to be let in unless the Hokage was in an important meeting. They just usually weren't here at the same time, let alone with a fox. Fortunately, the secretary was immune to shinobi nonsense, as she was an Anbu in disguise. Naruto stayed on Shisui's back for 2 reasons. A, he'd never had a piggyback ride before and it was kinda fun, and B, he wasn't entirely sure his legs would stay under him after the trip. It had been interesting, but disorienting. Shisui, Itachi, Kurama, Naruto, how are you doing? The third Hokage asked, smiling kindly at the 4. Is there a reason for this visit? Shisui nodded firmly, and Kurama was quite glad he was stuck to the boy's head by chakra or else he would have been discharged. Lord Third, I wish to request that Naruto stay with me, Shisui said. And if Danzo says no, I'm gonna go ahead and do it anyway. Hiruzen smiled fondly at the 3. Well, 4, as Kurama was perched on Shisui's head. I will allow it. Shisui smiled. Wonderful. Itachi nodded to Shisui. Clothing shopping. Shisui grinned down at Naruto, ruffling his hair. Come on, let's go find clothes. And ninja supplies. And groceries. I'm gonna need some more. Naruto grinned up at his new guardian, then followed him out. Shisui made a shadow clone to remain in the room, knowing what was going to happen. "Did you want to speak to me about something, Shisui, Itachi?" the Hokage asked. Itachi nodded. "We discussed it with Kurama." Hiruzen sighed heavily. He activated the privacy seals and sent the Anbu out. What did he have to say? "If negotiations aren't open soon, we may not be able to do anything short of massacring all adults that know about it," Shisui's clone said darkly. Hiruzen sighed again. "I was afraid of that. I am doing everything I can, but nothing is working." Shisui frowned. "Should it come to that, I request that both me and Itachi are held responsible. We'll become missing nin, and protect the village from the outside." Itachi shook his head. "No, Shisui, you can help me kill them, but you can't take the blame for it." "I can and I will," Shisui said firmly. "What are friends for?" Shisui, Itachi sighed. Hiruzen sighed. "Should that need to occur, I leave it to you to make preparations for what you will do once you have left." Shisui's shadow clone nodded. "Is that all?" The Hokage nodded. "You may dispel." The shadow clone disappeared with a soft poof of smoke, sending the memories to the real Shisui, who was arguing with a storekeeper about prices. He didn't even miss a beat as the memories came, filing them away quickly. "Fine, I'll just talk to Fugaku. Or Makoto. She wouldn't be happy about this." Shisui smirked at the shopkeeper, and left, 4-year-old Naruto in tow. Kurama had decided to dispel, as foxes were not smiled upon in Konoha. Especially by the civilian populace. Not to mention seeing one with Naruto, who was still considered the demon in human form. Shisui shooed Naruto into an alleyway and crouched down in front of him. "Naruto, to make this go a little faster, I'm going to show you a jutsu. It's called henge. It makes you appear different." Naruto smiled brightly. "Will it make people not glare at me?" Shisui sighed. "Yes, it will. Here are the hand signs." He showed Naruto the hand signs. "Picture yourself with black hair and black eyes, that way they'll just think I somehow picked up a stray Uchiha orphan. Or that I took Sasuke shopping for some reason. Silly kid refuses to socialize, so almost no one knows what he looks like anyway." Naruto nodded, doing the hand signs, and ending up as a very cute little black-haired, black-eyed kid. "Did I do good?" Shisui smiled. "Yep, come on, let's go try that place across the street. I thought I saw some orange inside." Naruto's face lit up, and they crossed the busy street, Naruto running in immediately to look at the shirts, finding an orange one almost immediately. He held it up, and Shisui smiled encouragingly. He grinned and ran off to find some more orange things. Shisui followed him, selecting a couple of other clothing options, mostly in black and dark blue, both colors that went well with orange. He also grabbed a couple of burnt orange shirts, to contrast the neon orange Naruto was grabbing. Finally, they managed to get enough clothes to last a week, plus a couple of extras, and paid for it. The weapons shop was next, more so for Shisui, as he was running low on kunai, but he grabbed a blunted set for Naruto to practice with. Itachi joined them as they walked towards the actual grocery store, intent on getting actual groceries. Shisui had realized he did not have nearly enough food in his cupboards to feed himself, let alone him plus a growing kid. They managed to make it out, and then into the Uchiha compound before Naruto's henge fell, startling an Uchiha who'd been walking around. "Well, Naruto, why don't you go see if you can put most of your clothes into the closet in the room you woke up in? Keep one out to put on, though," Shisui instructed, putting food away. Itachi was helping him, organizing the fridge. Naruto nodded, running off to put some better clothes on, clothes that weren't basically rags. "He's such a sweet child," Shisui noted. "Really too bad the civilians can't tell the difference between a storage seal and the kunai sealed inside, and have no respect for the fourth sealing abilities." Itachi grunted. "I mean, really, he's just a kid." Itachi grunted again. "I think we should take him with us, should the worst-case scenario occur." Itachi grunted, then stared at Shisui in surprise. "Did I hear you correctly?" Shisui nodded solemnly. "You probably did. He's hated by Konoha, and honestly, his new affiliation with the Uchiha clan isn't going to help anything. Lord Third won't like it," Itachi cautioned. "So, he can't really stop us. And besides, we can bring Naruto back to be a genin for a little bit, if he really insists. The life of a missing nin really isn't for children. Haven't you heard the rumors? I caught them from an Iwa Junin I ran into. He muttered something about one of their Jinchuriki not checking in, and the stupid guy being caught by some organization. Are they killing Jinchuriki? If so, why on earth are you considering them? Shisui shrugged. We might as well look into it, maybe see if they're just catching Jinchuriki, not killing them. Asking Jiraiya next time he's in town seems the best course of action. Shisui nodded. I agree. Kakashi might know some, he's one of the elite. We may also want to warn him of our departure with Naruto, should it come to that. We don't want him freaking out. Itachi nodded. Of course. Perhaps a note for Lord Third though, no? Shisui nodded, smiling wryly. Don't want him stopping us. We would need some way to communicate with him, so he can pass information on. Itachi nodded, and was about to say something, but was distracted by Naruto sliding into the kitchen in a neon orange t-shirt and dark blue pants. What are we doing now, Shisui ni? Naruto asked loudly, running up and looking at what he was doing, which was putting food away in cupboards. Shisui pretended to think about it. How about, Itachi, why don't you go pick up your little brother, and we can teach the boys how to throw kunai and shuriken properly. Naruto's face lit up, and Itachi silently slid out of the kitchen. See you at training ground 45, Shisui called after him, naming the training ground they usually trained at. Naruto bounced around Shisui, his mouth going non-stop. Have you had ramen? It's only the greatest food in the world. Shisui stopped him, a hand over his mouth. Never say that in front of Itachi, he warned. Itachi will take it as an insult against his precious Pocky. What's Pocky? Naruto asked, tilting his head. Shisui blinked. Never say that in front of Itachi either. Here, I should have a package of it around here somewhere. He dug around in his cupboards, simultaneously putting food away, and searching for the box of Pocky he kept around the house. Should Itachi end up at his house cause he had another disagreement with his father? It had been happening with alarming regularity, and the Konoha police force even assigned him to keep an eye on Itachi. He found the box, pulling it out, and handing a stick to Naruto, before putting the box away again. Itachi loves the stuff. Naruto basically inhaled the stick, and nodded. Not as good as ramen, but it's okay. Shisui laughed. Just don't say that in front of Itachi. He'll take it as a personal insult. Naruto cocked his head. Why? Shisui tilted his head. Well, he really likes Pocky, and basically worships the stuff. Either way, we should get going. It's longer to the training ground from here than from Itachi's house. Shisui ni, it's fine, Naruto insisted, folding his arms as Shisui messed with his hair. It's your first day at the academy. Shisui insisted right back. It's not that important, Naruto muttered grumpily. His two, Q and Kurama said at once, both out and lounging on separate chairs. Yeah, Shisui agreed, patting Naruto's head. Alright, come on, I made a bento, and we can go meet Sasuke and walk with him. Kurama jumped off the chair, stretching. Come on Kit, let's go. Q set aside the book he'd been reading and stood up. I can drop you off, but then I'm on Shisui watching duty cause Itachi's on a mission. Shisui pouted. You make it sound like I'm a dog. Naruto hugged Shisui around the waist, which was as high as he could reach. You're much too tall for a dog, he told Shisui solemnly. Thanks, Shisui told him. Come on, out the door. Shisui grabbed Naruto's bento from the counter, shoved it into his hands, and herded him out the door, Kurama managing to get onto his usual spot, Shisui's head, and Q closed behind. Shisui shut and locked the door behind them, happily herding them off through the Uchiha compound. Hey Shisui, Sasuke said, waving from his spot leaning against the wall. Good morning Sasuke, all ready for your first day at the academy? Sasuke grunted. Shisui beamed. Great, come on, we don't want to be late. Hello Sasuke, Q said, nodding to the Uchiha. Sasuke nodded to the other three, falling in next to them as they walked. In no time at all, they were at the academy, children standing with their parents, all there for the first day of the new academy year. Shisui said goodbye to the two boys and the fox, sighing as he watched them disappear into the crowd of children. I'm gonna miss Naruto getting under my feet. Q snorted softly. You get him back at the end of the school day. Shisui blew out his cheeks in a pout. I know that. Q shook his head. Come on, we have things to do. Shisui sighed again, looking forlornly at the academy. Q sweat dropped, grabbing Shisui's shoulder and steering him away from the academy. Come on, we are leaving now. Danzo's been more active, so summon a crow would you? Shisui bit his thumb, drawing blood. He slammed his hand on the ground, shouting, summoning jutsu. One puff of smoke later, and Shisui had a good-sized crow in front of him, looking at him curiously. Q smiled at the crow. If you wouldn't mind keeping an eye out for Danzo. We're trying to make it through the week without any missing eyes. The crow nodded, and hopped up on the very distracted Shisui's head. It promptly pecked him, startling him out of his sadness at not seeing his younger brother. The fact that said younger brother was adopted simply did not compute to Shisui, who'd gotten hopelessly attached. Danzo approached them fairly soon after they dropped Naruto off, claiming he needed to talk to Shisui. Q and the crow, named Kuro, insisted on coming. As they were in an isolated training ground, it quickly dissolved into a fight. Especially when rude Anbu started coming out of the woodwork. Shisui dealt with them, and Q and Kuro dealt with Danzo. Or tried, anyway. Q had, through hours of sparring and practicing with Shisui and Itachi, gotten really good at avoiding things. Especially things that would pop him. He snuck in hits when he could, and he and Kuro played an interesting game of keep away. Shisui cursed as a root nearly took off his arm. We need some help, he shouted to Q and Kuro. Can you summon a few more crows? Q shouted back. I don't want to attempt summoning on my own, I don't have enough chakra. I'm not going to ask, Shisui decided, trading a few blows with a root, before jumping back to bite his thumb and draw blood. Another root came after him, and Shisui just rolled with it, performing the summoning jutsu right on the surprised root's chest, throwing the nin back as a small flock of crows emerged from the puff of smoke. Right, you guys, half of you help me, the other half go help Kuro and Q. The crows split, half beginning their assault on the root nin, the other half beginning an assault on Danzo. All of a sudden, 3 of the nin fell, staring off into nowhere. A dark shadow emerged from the forest, a glinting tanto in his hands. This is what happens when I leave you alone, Shisui, Itachi sniped, cutting down a very surprised root. Shisui pouted, ducking under a swing, and stabbing the owner of the sword in the gut. It's not my fault. This time, Q shouted, ducking a hit from Danzo. Itachi, get over here and help me with this guy. I can only do so much damage. Itachi glanced at Shisui as he took out a few more root. Shisui nodded, and Itachi went over to try and stab Danzo. They fought for a couple more minutes before Danzo called a halt. He stepped back as the flock of crows circled above his head. Do not think this will work again, he said ominously as he disappeared into the shadows. Shisui cursed colorfully. That son of Orochimaru, he spat. That's not technically possible. Danzo is older than Orochimaru, Itachi pointed out blandly. Also, that's totally an insult to Orochimaru, Q agreed, smirking widely. Shisui snickered. Right, sorry. My bad. Care to explain how this happened? Itachi asked, watching the crows desummon themselves. Shisui rubbed the back of his head. Danzo was following us, so we decided to try and see what he wanted without any casualties. Q nodded, then sighed. I am low on chakra. As Itachi is here now, I can safely dispel. See you later. Both teens nodded to him, and he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Itachi sighed, rubbing his face. And here I was, hoping to just crash in bed for the next day and a half. We can go get Dango, Shisui offered. Itachi stared at him for a moment, then sighed again. That's not going to substitute sleeping for a day and a half straight, but it'll do for now. That, and some coffee. Shisui nodded amicably, and the two headed off. Needless to say, Sasuke was surprised when his brother came with Shisui to pick him up. Naruto wasn't, as Q had told him Itachi had gotten back and taken over for him. Q and Kurama had agreed with Itachi and Shisui that they were going to avoid informing Naruto of this, if at all possible. Itachi was holding a cup of coffee, but didn't look too bad. He was walking on his own, so that was good. Shisui was rather harried, hair going everywhere, well, more than usual. Shisui ni, Naruto shouted, bouncing up to him. We got to show off all our cool ninja skills. Shisui smiled tiredly. Did you now? How'd it go? Naruto bounced up and down excitedly. I think it went well. I showed off my shadow clones, and the teacher got this funny wide-eyed look, like the one you got when you first had me create as many as I could. Shisui smiled, and ruffled Naruto's hair. Good for you, the more surprised your teachers, the less they'll bother you. Naruto grinned, and nodded. Itachi ruffled Sasuke's hair, and glanced tiredly at Shisui. Can you manage for a few hours while I drop my report off at Hokage Tower? Shisui nodded. You can even sleep for the next day and a half when you're done. Itachi sighed slightly. We both know that's not going to happen. Never hurts to be optimistic, Shisui said, grinning. Alright boys, come on, we should get you home. Sasuke, I think your mother is making tomato soup for you. Shisui was sure Sasuke got stars in his eyes. Yummy, he muttered reverently. And Naruto, we can go get Ichiraku's tonight, Shisui allowed, smiling at Naruto. Naruto cheered, and started jumping around as Itachi walked, well, a bit more like staggered, away. Shisui sent a shadow clone after Itachi, half to make sure he got to the tower safely, and half to see if the Hokage had anything to say about Danzo's attack. Naruto continued bouncing around Shisui, babbling on about anything and everything. Shisui just shook his head and walked the two back to the compound. Shisui's shadow clone and Itachi stood in front of the Hokage. Or rather, in front of Danzo, who was standing in front of the desk, and the Hokage right behind him. I'm a shadow clone by the way, Shisui warned them. I do not have all day to exist. The Hokage sighed. I suppose you are correct. We do not have all day. I have paperwork. I will not beat around the bush. Negotiations aren't going well, and the Uchiha aren't cooperating in the slightest. We have to implement that plan. Shisui sighed, slumping slightly. Alright, we'll begin preparations. Are all Uchiha in the compound? For the next 2 days. The compound, and the police station. I requested they go through their ranks, so none of them will be out on patrol, Danzo rasped. Itachi nodded stiffly. It will be done. The Hokage seemed to age 10 years. Thank you. Dismissed. Shisui's shadow clone bowed his head and disappeared. I am also here to deliver my mission report, Itachi noted, handing the Hokage a slip of paper. I got back during a battle, and thus had no time to turn it in until now. A battle? Who were the sides? The Hokage asked, not at all missing the subtle shifting of Danzo. Danzo and his root agents, and Shisui, Q, and a flock or so of crows. I defended my cousin. Danzo shifted again, feeling Hirazen's eyes boring into his back. Itachi raised an eyebrow at Danzo, then nodded to the Hokage. If I may? Hirazen sighed deeply. Dismissed Itachi. Itachi bowed, and walked out. Or staggered out. One of the two. Hirazen sighed, staring daggers at Danzo. What do we do with you? Hirazen mumbled, setting aside the paperwork on his desk. Shisui, or rather, another shadow clone, went in search of Kakashi. Finally, he found him talking to a couple other Junin. Kakashi, may I borrow you for a moment? Shisui asked politely. Kakashi nodded, smiling and nodding at the Junin he'd been talking to. He stepped away, following Shisui to a much quieter and more secure place. Shisui looked him in the eye, and nodded. It's time. That plan is now being implemented. Tomorrow, you can get the boys? Kakashi nodded, his eye sharpening. I'll be there to pick them up. You'll leave a scroll? Shisui nodded. Thank you Kakashi. Kakashi nodded. For Sensei's son. Shisui sighed, smiling slightly. For Naruto. Kakashi turned and leapt away, and Shisui's shadow clone disappeared in a poof of smoke. Shisui sighed, receiving the memories of the second shadow clone. Everything was ready, they just needed to execute the plan. Naruto proudly held up his completed homework. All done. Shisui smiled, taking the paper. Sasuke was still scribbling away at his paper. Shisui checked over the paper, then handed it back to Naruto. Good job, go put that in your backpack, okay? Naruto nodded enthusiastically, taking the paper and running to his backpack. He had to take a sleeping Kurama off the backpack before he could put his homework away, but it got put away, and was ready for tomorrow. Shisui smiled as Naruto ran back, sitting back down at the table and tapping his foot. Shisui handed him a book, and waited for Itachi to get home. He got home about a minute after Naruto finished his homework. Shisui took one look at him, and rerouted him to the couch. You need sleep. I'll tell Makoto you two are staying the night. Itachi just nodded, laying down on the couch and falling asleep. Shisui smiled at his friend, and went to find a blanket. I finished my homework, Sasuke said, brandishing a paper at Shisui. Shisui smiled, and took the paper, looking it over. Looks good, you can put it away. Pull out a book or something, we need to be quiet so Itachi can sleep, okay? The boys nodded, picking up their books and relocating to the kitchen. Shisui followed them after a last glance at Itachi. He'd check for wounds when Itachi woke up. The next morning, they dropped the boys off at school, informing them that Kakashi would be the one picking them up that day. Neither boy actually knew what that meant, but Kurama and Q did. They both slept inside Naruto's mindscape, preparing for what was to come. Shisui dropped a scroll with Naruto and Sasuke's belongings off with Kakashi, Kakashi tucking it securely in his pouch. Itachi wrote up a note for the Hokage, detailing where they were going, and why they were taking who they were. He noted Shisui's insistence that they would drop by when Naruto was Genin age, and stay at least until he became Chunin. The Uchiha were investigating their own, as Danzo had said. Shisui would be taking care of the station, Itachi would take care of the compound. A genjutsu was set up so nothing would appear amiss, and the slaughter was due to begin as soon as Naruto and Sasuke were out of the village. After receiving the scroll with Naruto and Sasuke's stuff, Kakashi packed up his own, leaving his apartment empty, and a note on the table for the landlord, and whoever else happened to require something of him. Kakashi hummed a nonsense tune as he walked towards the academy. He'd packed his stuff up, and was all ready to defect from Konoha. It would be difficult, but what did he really have here? Sensei and his old team were dead, Sensei's son was treated like a demon incarnate, and he had failed any and all Genin teams he'd been given. Sure, Guy would probably kill him for this, but he really couldn't do much. And he'd left Guy a note, hopefully he'd understand. Kakashi waited patiently in front of the academy, as it was due to let out soon. Finally, the tiny children came pouring out, Naruto and Sasuke sort of lagging behind, chatting with each other, and a dark-haired girl, who seemed to be blushing heavily. Naruto and Sasuke spotted him, and rushed over, dragging the girl with them. Kakashi ni, Naruto shouted, latching onto his legs, wrapping around them in a fun imitation of one of those constrictor snakes. You're here to pick us up, right? This is Hinata, she's really nice, and pretty, and very smart. The girl, apparently named Hinata, blushed even heavier, and nearly fainted. But I think she's always sick, cause she's so red. But I don't think she has a fever, I mean, you can check, right Kakashi ni? Naruto didn't wait for an answer, detaching from him and grabbing his hand, pressing it to Hinata's forehead. See? Kakashi took his hand back, and I smiled at them. She's perfectly fine Naruto, you can leave her be. Naruto bobbed his head. Alright, if you say so Kakashi ni. Hinata was very red now, and clearly on the verge of fainting. Alright Naruto, Sasuke, I'm collecting you for your brothers, so let's get a move on, alright? Kakashi I smiled again, and started herding the two boys away from the embarrassed girl. Naruto nodded, and waved enthusiastically to Hinata. See you around Hinata-chan. Hinata went ahead and fainted there, just to be caught by her cousin, who scoffed at her unconscious form. I still think she's sick, Naruto noted. Maybe take her to the doctor. Neji's sweat dropped. I assure you, Hinata-sama is not sick. Naruto nodded agreeably. Alright, if you say so. He turned and followed Kakashi and Sasuke, who had continued walking away. Hey, wait up guys. Keep up, Sasuke shouted back. Naruto pouted, and darted after them, continuing to chatter excitedly. Kakashi ni, can you believe they gave us an assignment to look for some plant on the training grounds? Kakashi froze, and looked at him. This could be very helpful. What plant? Naruto squinted, frowning. It's green and leafy, and has these pretty blue flowers. Kakashi thought about it for a bit, then nodded. I know where to find a large patch of that, right outside the walls. I'm sure your brothers won't mind if we go on a short jaunt outside the village. Naruto lit up, and Sasuke looked mildly interested. Really? Naruto shouted. You're the best Kakashi ni. Kakashi I smiled. Of course I am. Sasuke shook his head, adjusting his backpack. Let's just go get it over with. Naruto, Sasuke, Q, Kurama, and Kakashi all walked towards the front gate, with the intention of walking out of the city to find a plant for homework. Hey, where are you going Kakashi? You don't have a mission, at least, not last I checked, one of the gate guards asked. Kakashi I smiled at them. I'm subbing for Shisui and Itachi and helping these two do their homework. There's a large field full of this plant they need right outside of the wall, and that would be easier than trying to find it around the training grounds. The gate guard who'd spoken nodded agreeably. Alright, but sign out, alright? Kakashi nodded agreeably and crossed to the sign-out area, signing his name, party names, and reason for leaving. The sign-out only applied to civilians and ninja not leaving on a registered mission. Kakashi finished, and herded the 2 5-year-olds and 2 shadow clones outside of Konoha. He led them a little ways away, to a field full of the plant the boys were looking for. Now he just had to distract the boys for a few hours. Shouldn't be too hard, right? There was that one game Rin had used to distract him and Obito that one time Sensei was late. What was it called? Something with a cat? Or was it a cradle? Never mind, he remembered it had occupied him and Obito until Sensei arrived, a good hour and a half late, even later than Obito. Now to see if he could remember how to do it. Kakashi pulled out a random long piece of yarn, one he wasn't entirely sure why he had, and tied the ends together. He looped it around his wrists a few times, Naruto and Sasuke watching him curiously, Kurama and Q contemplative. "Is that cat's cradle?" Kurama asked first, nosing the string woven around Kakashi's fingers and wrists. Kakashi nodded, so it was both cat and cradle. Well, now he was wondering why a fox knew what it was. Q poked at it, inserting his fingers into the woven string, and doing the correct movements to transfer it to his fingers. "I am assuming you are going to show it to the boys? You realize you cannot teach it without a second person, right?" "I can make shadow clones," Kakashi dismissed. Q watched him, unimpressed. Kakashi shrugged, taking the string from him, the string woven in a different pattern around his fingers. "What are you doing?" Naruto asked, peering over Q's shoulder. "Playing cat's cradle, would you like to try?" Kakashi replied, eyes smiling at him. Naruto frowned thoughtfully. "If you help me and Sasuke finished our homework, I'll play with you." Kakashi sighed. "Alright, we can do that instead." Shisui and Itachi found them like that an hour and a half later, both dripping wet, as they had done a quick dip in the river to get rid of the blood. Kakashi looked up from where he was lying on the ground, Naruto, and Sasuke using his back as a table. "Shisui ni!" Naruto shouted, launching himself at Shisui. Shisui caught him and held Naruto away from himself. "Careful there, kid, I'm all wet." "Fell in a river." Sasuke didn't look impressed. "Both of you fell in a river?" Shisui nodded solemnly. "The root tripped both of us." Now all 5 people in the clearing were staring at him, unimpressed. Well, 4 humans and a fox. Itachi was just standing there, being no help at all. Shisui pouted. "Can't you just believe me?" "Ni-san's not clumsy," Sasuke replied, deadpan. "He has a point," Kurama said, smirking at them. Shisui stuck his tongue out at the fox. "Come on, we're leaving." "Leaving where?" Naruto asked, confusion and worry warring on his face. "Outside of Konoha," Itachi said gently. "We're finding a better place for you to grow up." Sasuke sat down in shock, and the closest thing to sit down on just so happened to be Kakashi, who let out a grunt as the 5-year-old sat down on him heavily. "What about Mom and Dad?" Kurama sighed, jumping into Sasuke's lap and settling down. "They're dead, kid. We can't explain now, we have to leave." Sasuke sat there, stunned for a moment, then tears began to well up in his eyes. "Dead? Why?" Itachi walked over and picked up his little brother, Kurama jumping onto his head. "We can't explain now. We need to go. We'll explain as soon as we reach the place we're going, alright?" Kakashi, the weight on his back removed, stood up. He bit his thumb, summoning 2 of his dogs. "Bull, can you carry Sasuke for the time being? Pakun, can you obscure our passage?" "Naruto," Kurama said, hopping down to land in front of the kid. "Do you think you can handle 2 tails?" Naruto looked hesitant for a moment, but nodded, a determined face taking over. "Yes, I can. It may hurt," Kurama cautioned. Naruto swallowed, and made the ram sign, the one Shisui had said was used to channel chakra. A red stream of chakra came from his stomach, pouring into Kurama. Kurama grew to about the size of Bull, so his shoulder was comfortably above Naruto's head. To be fair, he was a pretty short 5-year-old. Naruto blinked open his eyes and looked at the now 2-tailed Kurama. It worked, and it didn't really hurt, more like, tickled a bit. Kurama nodded, folding his front legs so Naruto could clamber up. "I'll be carrying you, kid." We'll move faster that way. Naruto smiled weakly, perhaps remembering why they needed to move so quickly. He quickly clambered up, wrapping his arms and legs around Kurama best he could. They moved quickly, keeping to the trees in order to move quicker. They had to get further away from Konoha. Hiruzen had promised to not send out Hunter Nin for a while, but it wouldn't be forever, and they had to get distance. With any luck, they wouldn't have to go through AIM looking for the Akatsuki, and the Akatsuki would instead find them. They were 3S ranked missing Nin, after all. None of them had drawn the line through their headband yet, figuring they could do it after they crossed the border sometime in the next hour. They'd go over the border, then go as far as they could before resting for the night. Shisui ni, Naruto asked suddenly. Aren't there people who chase people who run away? Shisui sighed, moving up to branch hop next to Kurama. Yes there are, but think about it like this. The Hokage knows what we're doing, and why we're doing it, so he's going to stall them, and not send them out till next week. We have some important people to find before that time runs out. Important people? Naruto asked, tilting his head. Important, Shisui corrected. They're called the Akatsuki, and they're based in AIM as far as we know. Naruto scrunched up his nose. Rain? Rain, Shisui agreed. Wet, Naruto decided, burying his face in Kurama's fur. Wet, Shisui agreed again, before falling back into his original position. They made it over the border with an hour or so before dusk. They stopped for the night an hour later, most of the way to AIM. They only had a few hours to go before they reached AIM, but it wouldn't do to have the boys passing out and falling off their respective rides. Plus, while Kakashi was rested, Shisui and Itachi, having had to kill an entire freaking clan of shinobi, were much more tired. When they stopped, both were barely on their feet, and that was just pure determination. I'll keep watch, Q said before anyone else could say anything. I slept in the seal during the academy, I'll be fine. And I can dispel and sleep while you're moving tomorrow if need be. The three Junin just nodded, knowing the intelligence in that. Q was a sturdy shadow clone, and Kurama would most likely be up and around, keeping watch as well. Kurama laid down to allow Naruto off his back. Itachi managed to pick his brother off of Bull's back. The large dog dispelled with a nod to Kakashi. Q immediately nicked the camping supplies scroll from Shisui, and opened it. He quickly unsealed the tents, and Itachi immediately began to set them up, settling his almost catatonic brother in one of them as soon as he had it set up. Kakashi stole the scroll from Q, unsealing the cooking supplies, setting them up, and heading off with a kunai in hand. Once the boys were peacefully sleeping, the three Junin gathered around the dying campfire for one last thing they had to do. Shisui stared at his headband, situated on the ground. I thought I'd never do this. Itachi grunted in agreement. Kakashi sighed at his headband. It's for the best. If it's anything, I think Kushina Ne would be proud of us, of all things. The two Uchiha hummed in agreement. Kakashi took his kunai to his headband first, drawing a rather sloppy horizontal line through the Konoha symbol. He tied it back on his forehead. To keeping the boys safe, Shisui drew a much neater line through his headband, and tied it on as well. To keeping the boys safe, Itachi sighed, drawing a very nearly perfect line through the Konoha symbol. To keeping them safe, they reached the AIM border a few days later, crossing without incident. A few miles in, they were stopped by a pair of people, one that was blue and had very Sharky-like features, and the other that was hunched over. Why are you here? The blue one asked, placing his hand on his bandaged sword. We wish to join the Akatsuki, Itachi said, eyes narrowed dangerously as he stepped in front of Sasuke and Naruto. You have children with you, the other one said, a female with blue hair. We do, Shisui agreed. Is that a problem? And you have them here why? They don't look like ninja. We're ninja in training, Naruto said, pumping his fist. Kurama sighed. Kit, stop talking, you aren't helping. Naruto pouted, but fell silent, flopping against Kurama's back. They are children, the blue one reiterated, narrowing his eyes. Is that a problem? Kakashi asked, narrowing his visible eye. We shall talk with Leader Sama. Do not go anywhere, the other one said, turning away from them. Shisui nodded, turning to Sasuke and Naruto. Alright. Let's set up camp for now, and give Kurama and Bull a chance to rest. Itachi sighed, but handed the camping scrolls out. They didn't have to wait long. After a couple of hours a rain started up, then it stopped, and an orange-haired person with the fabled Rinnegan came to meet them. "You wish to join the Akatsuki?" he asked. Shisui jumped up, and nodded. "Yes. You have a Jinchuriki with you." "We do. It was rumored you were looking for them, but meant them no harm," Itachi said levelly. The orange-haired man inclined his head. "You may refer to me as Leader Sama." Kakashi tilted his head, so much like the dogs he summoned. "I'm assuming we're hired?" Leader nodded. "You will be paired off, and begin missions tomorrow." Shisui glanced at Naruto and Sasuke, who's fallen asleep leaning against Kurama, who was also asleep. "And who will watch them? They're just 5 years old, they need supervision. If you so wish, you may watch them instead," Leader said, nodding to Shisui. Shisui nodded, visibly relieved. "Congratulations," Kakashi muttered to Shisui. "You're now the de facto babysitter. Is it really all that bad?" Shisui shot back. Kakashi just snorted, and turned to pack up. Leader eyed him, but didn't comment. Shisui pouted at Kakashi's back for a moment, then packed up himself, packing his own tent up, then getting to work on Naruto's while Itachi handled Sasuke's. Leader watched them, silent and unmoving as they finished their packing up and woke up Naruto and Sasuke, who seemed quite fascinated by Leader. Naruto and Sasuke alike gaped at the city, the sky, and just everything in general. They'd never seen so much rain. It had been drizzling the entire time they were approaching the city, which Shisui had told them was called a megacure, or the village hidden by rain. "Does it always rain here?" Naruto asked, catching one of the raindrops on his tongue. "Yes," Leader said shortly, leading them inside of the base. "It's called the village hidden by rain for a reason," Kurama pointed out. "Whoa, so many rooms." Naruto marveled. "It is a lot of rooms," Sasuke agreed. "Are there people in all of them?" Leader shook his head. "Those with plaques have people in them now, or will have people in them in the future. Select a room without a plaque. Except the Nine Tails' container. He will be in the room labeled 9. Shisui nodded, glancing to Kakashi and Itachi. "Is there anything else?" "There is no specified mealtime. Cook your own food, get your own groceries, but do not be surprised if they get used," Leader listed off. "Be in the meeting room at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning with the Jinchuriki." Naruto found the room with the kanji for 9 on a plaque, and went in, followed by Kurama in his one-tailed state. "Wow, it's so big," Naruto exclaimed, followed by a similar statement from Sasuke, who picked the room next to him. Itachi and Shisui selected rooms across from their respective little brothers, and Kakashi picked the one next to Itachi's. "I guess we should probably tell you why we had to go missing, Nin," Itachi began when they were all seated at a table in the mess hall. "Well, except for Kakashi, who'd wandered off somewhere." Sasuke nodded rapidly. "Yes, it's about time." Shisui sighed heavily. For one thing, Kakashi was not involved in most of this. "We just told him about us going missing, Nin, and he insisted on joining us. He was a student of your father, Naruto." Itachi picked up the tale. "The Uchiha clan was planning a coup. They refused to respond to negotiations, and therefore it was you, Sasuke, being left alive while the rest of the clan was killed, or a civil war in Konoha, which would lead to another shinobi world war. Danzo ordered us to, and gave us the ultimatum. We took the side with less bloodshed. As bloody as the newly named Uchiha massacre was, it would have had nothing on a civil war with the Leaf, followed by a shinobi world war," Shisui said, stirring his cereal. Sasuke got up from his seat, moving towards Itachi. Itachi tensed slightly, but relaxed when Sasuke attached himself to Itachi's side. "Ni-san, for the record, I think you were right." Kurama growled slightly in agreement. On the plus side, Shisui is not known as a participant of the Uchiha massacre, neither is Kakashi. As far as anyone knows, Itachi stole Sasuke and Naruto from Konoha, and Kakashi and Shisui went rouge to find them, or something else ridiculous like that. Sarutobi confirmed that Shisui, Kakashi, and you two will be welcome back in Konoha, should you so choose. "We were planning on taking you back to Konoha for a bit when it would be time for you to become genin if you hadn't left," Shisui said. "We figured you might want to have headbands to actually slash. I wouldn't be welcome in Konoha, but if you had any out-of-village missions, I would be able to see you then," Itachi said, patting his brother's head, only slightly awkwardly. Naruto frowned slightly. "Would we be placed with other Junin sensei? And what about teammates?" Shisui shrugged. "Up to the Hokage. We did hint that one of us would like to be your sensei. And may have suggested potential teammates. Itachi shook his head. Kakashi did want to teach you, Naruto, but your brother may take you instead. Kakashi will most likely insist on teaching you instead, Sasuke. Loud crashes and other rather worrying noises came from about where the front of the building. Shisui heaved a sigh and stood up. I may want to go check that out. Naruto, Sasuke, you two stay here and finish eating. I promise to drag anyone interesting back here for you to meet. That seemed to mollify the slightly irritated kids. Sasuke detached from his brother and hopped back into his seat. You'd better, cousin Shisui. Shisui's sweat dropped, and walked off towards the sounds. Now that he was getting closer, he was beginning to catch snippets of the conversation. If you blow that thing up, I will personally take you back to Iwa, boy. A cranky voice snapped. Well, what am I supposed to do with it? A much younger voice snapped right back. Recycle it. Use it again. The cranky one replied waspishly. Don't fight, a younger voice than either of the previous ones said timidly. That's bad. Shisui rounded a corner, almost shocked to find a blonde kid, perhaps 9 years old, arguing with a red-headed teenager Shisui recognized as Sasori of the Red Sand. Even if he really should be in his 30s or so. A second redhead, this one much younger, perhaps 5, around Naruto and Sasuke's age, hid behind Sasori, and clutched tightly to his pants. Hello, Shisui chirped, trying to defuse the situation. Everyone in the hallway turned to face him, and Shisui smiled disarmingly. Hello, the smaller redhead offered quietly. Who are you? Sasori snapped waspishly. I'm new, Shisui Uchiha. Or Shunshin no Shisui. Sasori grunted. Sasori of the Red Sand. The blonde 9-year-old idiot is Deidara Bo, and the kid is Gaara. Youngest child of the current Case Cage and Jinchuriki to the One-Tails. The kid now identified as Gaara waved timidly, having moved behind Sasori again. Deidara waved at him as well, and accompanied it with a blinding smile. Hello Gaara, Deidara, would you like to meet my brother and my cousins? My brother is the Nine-Tails container. Deidara grinned. Sure, better than being stuck with this stick in the mud. He doesn't understand true art. Sasori frowned at the blonde. Gaara glanced up at Sasori, hesitation clear in his eyes. Sasori sighed and gestured to Shisui. Just go, meet a fellow Jinchuriki. Just don't kill anything. Shisui raised an eyebrow, sensing a story there. Ultimately, the redhead hesitantly came over, and Shisui offered his hand. The kid took it, and allowed Shisui to lead him down the hall, Deidara following close behind, chattering on about how art was an explosion. Art is fire, Shisui mused. Explosions work too though, I suppose. Shisui ni, who's this? Naruto asked, bounding over. Gaara, meet Naruto Uzumaki, Shisui said with a wide grin. Nice to meet you. Naruto chirped, basically catapulting himself off of his seat to land in front of Gaara, who hid behind Shisui's leg. He's rather shy, Shisui explained to his little brother. Ooh, Naruto said, nodded. He stuck out his hand anyway. Nice to meet you, he tried again, quieter this time. Gaara shook the offered hand quickly, then retreated behind Shisui again. Kurama jumped down from the table, nosing Gaara's leg. Hey, this is the container for Shukaku. The One-Tails, by the way. Gaara blinked at the talking fox. Shukaku? Kurama bobbed his head. One of my brothers. I would assume he controls your sand? Although, I don't see any sand. Sasori-san insisted I leave it behind, Gaara all but whispered. Kurama nodded. Wise. My brother can be touchy when it comes to his kits. Can you contact him? Gaara shrugged. I only know of mother. Kurama's face went blank for a moment, then he sighed. Tell your mother we're going to have a talk later, and if she behaves, we'll find some sand for you. Gaara nodded, and Shisui plopped down in the seat he'd been in earlier. Oh, and that's Deidara. He's from Iwa. Shisui waved his hand in the 9-year-old's direction. Art is an explosion, Deidara said, making an explosion noise. Naruto and Sasuke oohed and nodded enthusiastically. How do you blow stuff up? Itachi asked curiously. I have the explosion release bloodline, Deidara explained. I put my chakra into my clay, then blow it up, yeah. Itachi nodded. If you're going to practice, do it outside. Shisui laughed. Yeah, don't want to bring this entire place down on our heads. That would be ill-advised, Kurama agreed, sniffing Deidara's leg too. Why are you here? Deidara shrugged. Sasori muttered something about me joining the Akatsuki when I'm a bit older, Itachi nodded. So, we're keeping you until then? Deidara shrugged. I guess, not much else for me to do. The old man doesn't appreciate my art, Old man? Naruto asked. Hey, that's what I call my old man. Who's your old man? Deidara asked, narrowing his eyes at the much shorter blonde. The Hokage. That means mine's way cooler than yours. Well, mine's the Tsuchikage. Deidara shot back. Mine's cooler. Shisui sighed. Boys, the Hokage and the Tsuchikage are equally cool and equally old. You can stop arguing now, especially you, Deidara, as you just said your old man doesn't understand your art. Itachi sighed. I have a feeling you two are going to get along like explosives on fire. Shisui smiled innocently. What makes you say that? Itachi sighed again, and shook his head at his cousin. You're supposed to be older than me. And your point is? Shisui asked. Itachi just shook his head again. Sasuke held out his hand to Gaara. My name's Sasuke, wanna go find your room? Gaara nodded hesitantly, taking the hand and following Sasuke out of the dining room. Itachi watched them go and decided they'd be fine. He was needed here, so nothing was turned into art. They found the Seven Tails next. Itachi and Kakashi brought her back, and Naruto, Gaara, and Sasuke met her at the front gate. Hehehehe, Naruto said, bouncing up and down. Fu, the Seven Tails Jinchuriki imitated him, bouncing up and down with excitement. Will you be my friends? Naruto's grin only widened. Of course. Shisui, who'd accompanied the now 6-year-olds, placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Down, kid. Naruto pouted. I'm not a kid. Are two. Kakashi said, ruffling Naruto's hair. Naruto, Gaara. Why don't you two let Kurama and Shukaku out? Naruto perked up, placing his hands in the cross sign, and summoning both Q and Kurama. He pouted. I thought I had that down. Q shrugged. Doesn't matter, I would have had to meet her at some point. Fu blinked, eyes wide. You can make a friend whenever you want? Naruto blinked at her, then at Q. Well, Q was an accident. I accidentally made a shadow clone with both Kurama and my chakras. Fu marched right up to Q and stuck out her hand. My name's Fu. What's yours? Q looked amused. As Naruto has said, my name is Q. Fu wrinkled her nose. 9? Your name is 9? Kurama smirked. And Naruto's name is Fishcake, your point? It's Maelstrom. Naruto squawked. Fu giggled. Gaara had created a little sand clone for Shukaku, and the tanuki now nosed Fu's leg. Me too, he screeched. Fu grinned and crouched down to pet him. You feel like sand, Mr. Shukaku. I am sand. The tanuki deadpanned. Shisui snickered. Alright, back to the base, we don't want Sasuke to catch a cold. Why am I always the one going to catch a cold? Sasuke complained, sniffing. Imouto, you're the only one that can, Itachi pointed out. Sasuke puffed out a cheek in a pout. Ni-san, you can catch a cold too. Itachi ruffled his hair. I'm less likely to, I have a stronger immune system than you. Naruto, who'd been chatting equally to Gaara and Fu, suddenly grabbed both of them by their hands, and started dragging them off. Gaara less willing than Fu, but he'd gotten used to being dragged everywhere by an over-enthusiastic Naruto. Sasori was approached by Gaara a few days after Fu arrived. Can you teach me to do what you do? Sasori blinked at the smaller redhead. My kind of puppetry is not for the faint of heart. Gaara nodded. I know, you use human corpses as puppets. I still want to learn. Sasori sighed, and pulled out a small practice puppet. I'll consider it if you can be shown how to create chakra strings. Then learn to move this puppet on your own before I come back from my next mission. Gaara learned to control the puppet 2 days after he got it, before Sasori even left on his mission. Sasori gave him a bigger puppet with the same instructions. Just like that, Sasori had someone to pass his techniques on to. Shisui, Itachi said, a long-suffering expression on his face. Yes? Shisui asked innocently. You have nail polish on your headband. Shisui nodded. For some reason the Akatsuki all had painted nails. Shisui went with neon, and glow in the dark, but Itachi didn't need to know that. Yellow. Gaara had picked a pale brown, about the color of his sand. Naruto switched Kanon for the orange, then made it neon and glow in the dark. Fu had neon glow in the dark green. Sasuke picked dark red. Itachi had a dark purplish color, and Kakashi picked silver. I do. Gaara looked up from where he was working with Sasori on a puppet. Naruto told him to. Itachi sighed. And of course he went along with it. Shisui just smiled innocently. Itachi sighed into the darkness. Shisui. Yes? Shisui asked quietly, not bothering to look away from their quarry. Your headband is glowing. So are my nails. Your point? Itachi facepalmed quietly. Shisui, we are on a stealth mission. So why are you having a problem? He hasn't seen us. Itachi sighed again, long-sufferingly. This is why you're the babysitter. Older brother, Shisui corrected cheerfully. You want to do what? Shisui asked, tilting his head slightly. Sasori-sensei said I had to ask permission to begin preparing a puppet body for me to transfer into when I am old enough. Shisui sighed. And he thinks he can transfer the tailed beast safely? Gaara nodded enthusiastically. Shisui sighed again. Fine, when you're old enough you can do it. Gaara cheered quietly, sand swirling around him in entrancing patterns. He turned and ran off, presumably to start building the puppet with Sasori. How that kid had managed to soften the heart of the famed Akasuna no Sasori, Shisui didn't know. But it was adorable. It was brought to my attention that I forgot to tell you why the Akatsuki are collecting the Biju this time. This is a little while after they arrived at the base. Almost the entire Akatsuki was there, except Orochimaru, who was busy, and Hidan who was not allowed to tune in. Mostly for fear of the children overhearing his foul mouth. We're here to announce 3 new members, and update our position on collecting the Biju, Pain said, standing solemnly at the head of the table. Itachi Uchiha, Shisui Uchiha, and Kakashi Hitaki brought Sasuke Uchiha and the 9 Tails Jinchuriki in. Sasori brought in potential member Deidara and the 1 Tails Jinchuriki. Pain nodded to each member as he spoke their names. Deidara was watching the kids in another room. So, why exactly are we collecting the Jinchuriki? Shisui wondered. To give them a proper home and childhood, Sasori replied smoothly. They tend to go missing ninja anyway, we're just speeding up the process. And giving them a nice home while we're at it. Kakashi hummed. No plans of world domination? We had plans of world peace, Pain mused. They were crushed pretty quickly, so we settled for peace for AIM and happiness for the Jinchuriki. Maybe with all of the Jinchuriki in AIM, the bigger villages will listen to us, Shisui offered. Then we can make peace. Pain nodded. We will have to wait and see. In the meantime, Kakashi, Itachi, the 7 Tails is in Taki. We don't know who it is though, so reconnaissance will be needed before you can fetch them. Deidara says that Iwa's Biju are being transferred into children, to let them hide easier, Sasori said. Pain turned to Itachi. If you wouldn't mind allowing Sasuke to accompany Sasori on that mission. It would be low risk, especially for Sasuke, as it would mostly consist of playing with other children and seeing if any 2 are ostracized. We'll send Shisui with 1 or 2 of the Jinchuriki, and they'll do the actual fetching of the Jinchuriki. Sasori raised his hand. Yes, Sasori? Deidara mentioned he'd be too old for the transfer when it happened. That implies it'll happen after he's 16, which is when you can no longer place a Biju in someone, Sasori said. That means it will be done when the Jinchuriki we have are around 12. We have plenty of time. Pain frowned. Kakuzu, you, Hidan, and Orochimaru will take turns harassing the Iwa Jinchuriki. Don't kill or severely maim, just harass. Make it seem like they aren't safe and try and get that table moved up. Sasori, you will be looking for Yukitato in the meantime. He is not affiliated with any village right now, so we'll try and get him on our side. Sasori nodded. You have your orders. I will call you again if anything changes. Before Fu, about 2 years in. Fu comes about a month later. Naruto was walking around AIM, saying hello to people, and just generally being an adorable 7-year-old kid. He glanced over, seeing Sasori coming in with a strange man. He ran over. Sasori ni, who's that guy? This is Yukitato. He has number 6. Kit, let me out. I want to say hello, Kurama insisted. Naruto dutifully made the hand sign, channeling a bit of chakra to make a shadow clone of Kurama. Hello, Saiken, Kurama said, curling around Naruto's feet. I see you've finally got one of your Jinchuriki to go missing ninja. Yukitato blinked, pulling a thingy out of his belt and blowing a few bubbles, which floated down, forming a tiny slug. I see you've finally found a kid to parent Kurama, the slug snapped. I have multiple kits, Kurama said happily. This one's just my Jinchuriki. Everyone stared at the two mini Biju. Do you hate each other? Naruto asked, blinking innocently. The Biju exchanged glances and shook their heads. No, we don't, it's just playful teasing between siblings, Kurama explained. Naruto thought about that for a bit. Like how Shisui Ni doesn't like Hidan. No, that's very different. They do hate each other. Well, Hidan doesn't care, but Shisui certainly doesn't like Hidan. Is that why Shisui Ni doesn't let us meet him? Naruto asked, all innocence and sunshine. Shisui doesn't let you meet him because he has a foul mouth, Sasori said blandly. Naruto looked confused. Kurama nudged his Jinchuriki. Come on, let's go show Yukitato his room, shall we? Shisui. Gaara shouted, running around the house, waving a scroll in the air. The puppet inside was much bigger than his 8-year-old frame, and Sasori had let him seal it away. Shisui appeared around a corner, and Gaara crashed into him, sending both of them to the ground. Ow, geez kid. What was so important you had to crash into me for it? Shisui grunted, gently pushing Gaara off of him. I finished my first battle puppet. Gaara happily waved it in the air. Oh, why don't we go to a sparring room, and you can show me? Shisui suggested. It truly was a very impressive puppet. Shisui would guess it had been a Yamanaka, based on the long pale blonde hair and slim frame, but he could always be wrong. The puppet was dressed simply, in a sandy brown robe that would permit movement and weapon use. Gaara had the puppet go through a few kata, displaying the weapons on the puppet. The others collected, staring at the interesting puppet. My first puppet, Fubuki Yamanaka. They took turns trying to cook for a while, with varying results. With 9-year-old children, that was to be expected. Naruto, Shisui began, staring at the attempt at food. You're not cooking again. Naruto drooped. Why not? Shisui gave him a deadpan look and poked at the attempt at whatever he'd been trying to cook. When it ends up the consistency of jello, when it's not supposed to be, you did not cook it right. And you cooked it so wrong it ended up an unidentifiable bunch of gloop. Naruto pouted, and Shisui ended up making ramen to cheer him up after that fiasco. Itachi tried next. It's not terrible, Kisame hedged. It's about the right consistency, Shisui tried. It's got less spice than you do emotion, Naruto said bluntly. You're joining me in not cooking. Itachi looked almost sad, but got over it fairly quickly. You have officially joined the roster of cooking, Shisui told Gaara. But maybe pick slightly less clashing and powerful tastes next time. Gaara took that gamely. Shukaku saw it as an insult and tried attacking Shisui's ankles, which failed because he was wearing thick boots. This was not the first time Shukaku had tried to attack ankles, which was all he could reach, so they all wore thick boots. Kakashi couldn't cook very well, but he could manage. Fu was enthusiastic, but not the greatest cook. Q could cook, no one was precisely sure why, but he could. Deidara burnt everything. Kisame was good at fish, just about nothing else. Konan was fairly good at cooking, and Shisui had designated himself as the permanent cook, something everyone was happy with, and the less said about Sasuke's cooking, the better. Are you sure that's not an eldritch horror? Shisui asked, half hidden behind Itachi, who was as unperturbed as usual. Sasuke pouted at him. It's fried rice. Shisui gave the monstrosity a dubious look, and shook his head. Sorry Sasuke, that is not fried rice. At least, not anymore. Sasuke pouted at him, but Shisui pacified him with a tomato. Finally guys, this is over. If you enjoy it then please like, share and do comments.